Welcome to Rubber Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube channel where we explore all things cinema. It is that time of year already. New Year's is upon us. Just after Christmas, of course, we're going from Christmas movies to New Year's movies. My last video that I just came out with was 4 of my favorite Christmas films, or what I like to call melancholy Christmas films. I'll leave the link in the description box below if you haven't seen it yet. And now we're looking forward at New Year's. And so, again, like I asked audiences and myself, what makes a Christmas movie? What is it about a movie that takes place at Christmas, whether it's 2 scenes or the entire film? Why do we consider certain things Christmas films? And I would say the same thing about New Year's. Does it simply have a New Year's scene? Does it take place at New Year's, and New Year's has a big part of what's happening in the story? You know, of course, New Year's, we're reflecting on our year, we're looking back at what went well or what went wrong, or maybe we're hoping we can't wait until it's over, or we don't want it to be over because it was a great year. People are optimistic about the future often, or they're making plans and resolutions. And so it can be a very hopeful time, a time to start fresh. And so these films, to me, sort of reflect that in some way when the New Year's scenes approach, or it has a scene that takes place at New Year's that is just so emotionally captivating and powerful and unforgettable and iconic. One is certainly, well, you'll all know when I get to it, which will be shortly. But it's hard to define, what makes a New Year's film. But these films are all take place at New Year's at one point or another in the story. So my first one up, this is actually a short film directed and written by the great Charles Burnett. When It Rains, which was released in 1995. I'll just read a brief synopsis. A mother enlists the help of a musician when she is evicted on New Year's Day. This starred Ayuko Babu, Florence, Bracy, and Kenny Merritt. I had heard about this in the past, but it came to the forefront recently because Jonathan Rosenbaum, the great film critic who I've interviewed in the past, again, I'll leave that link in the description box if anyone wants to see it. He recently released a list of his top 10 favorite American films, and this is on that list, and which is interesting because it's a short film, so it's got to be one hell of a film if Jonathan Rosenbaum's going to put a short film on his top 10 list. I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but it's just unusual because, in such a short amount of time, it's there are a lot of great short films, but to make a top 10, that's got to be one hell of a short film when you only have so much time to tell a story, which is really, really challenging. But I just recently watched it and I thought it was wonderful. I love the way it begins, where it looks like it takes place in Los Angeles, within this black community, and someone is throwing a Christmas tree over of like a brick wall, and I just love that because it's sort of like, that's the end of the holidays kind of thing, and just tossing it over. But it's a simple story, but it's really rich in this woman who's being, of course, of all days, it has to be New Year's that she's being evicted. She's behind on rent, and she goes to this musician for help, and he goes around the community trying to find people to pitch in money to help pay her rent, and it's really, really that simple. But it really, the metaphor, of course, it's a metaphor for music, for blues and jazz, and what do you get when blues and jazz comes together. And the narration is the character who is helping. He's someone who helps people in the community when they're in trouble. That's Ayuko Babu. He's quite wonderful, and he's this musician, and he's got a great voice, and he talks in the narration about that black people are, the African American population are resilient and everything that they've been through, like the slave trade, they always find ways to survive, and that's really what this is about, they have to come together and help each other out, which is of course how they've survived over the years together. But then he says in the voiceover, we also have our contradictions. So of course that's them being forced. They obviously this is subtly suggested, but because it looks like a poor neighborhood, and they're together, and as a result of poverty, they're forced to be against each other sometimes, because the landlord he's an African American as well, and he's the one kicking this woman out. And even though she's got a daughter, and the musician's like, hey, come on, man, she's got a daughter, you're kicking her out on New Year's Day. And so that to me, and I know some other reviews I read, which is quite interesting, is what I think he's getting at when he talks about the African American communities having their contradictions, because they're forced to put into situations where they're struggling so much that they then are against each other, but then at the same time have this thriving community. And so this great blues and jazz score plays throughout the film, and it feels like a great jazz song. The way in which because if you think often it has that improv feel to it, the way in which the musicians work off one another. And that is very much what happens in the story. The guy's improvising, he's going into the community, he's trying to get help. Some people say yes, some people say no, and he's trying to find his way. And so and again, it's all on New Year's, and New Year's just starting out bad, which unfortunately happens sometimes when things are, it's going to be great. This is going to be a great year, and I'm hoping for this. And then, how often do we hear when New Year's starts, oh God, the New Year's just started, and now I've got to deal with this and that. And so I thought that hit well and was appropriate. So you could see this on the Criterion channel. It's really, really good. After that, this is also a film I just recently saw, directed by George Cukor, is Holiday, which was released in 1938. This starred Katherine Hepburn, Cary Grant, Doris, Nolan. I'll read a brief synopsis. A young man in love with a girl from a rich family finds his unorthodox plan to go on holiday for the early years of his life met with skepticism by everyone except for his fiance's eccentric sister and long-suffering brother. This was off IMDb. Of course, when they're saying his life, I imagine the beginning of his life, they mean his life with his fiance. The screenplay was by Donald Ogden Stewart and Sidney Buchman, or is it Buchman? Apologies if I have that wrong. It was adapted from the play Holiday from 1928, which was by Philip Berry. So I of course, this is a well-known film. I had heard about it, of course, but I just finished Joseph McBride's new book on George Cukor, which I highly recommend, and I will be interviewing Joseph shortly about it. And honestly, Cukor is becoming one of my favorite filmmakers. I mean, I'd seen some of his movies, but a lot of the themes and characters he's interested in, I could deeply relate to. And this is no exception. Cary Grant's character, Johnny, he's an individual, and he wants to find the meaning of life. He's found that he's only been working his whole life, and he has a feeling that there's something else out there that he's missing out on. He doesn't know what. He wants to find out why he's been working this much, and he's searching. It's soul searching. And so he gets, as I said, he gets engaged to this woman, and she's only interested in security, and she's more conventional, and she's controlled. Her and her sister and brother, they're all controlled by their very wealthy father, and they react in different ways. The brother he becomes an alcoholic as a result. Katherine Hepburn's character feels disrespected. She feels stifled. She feels stuck, and she doesn't really know. Linda is Katherine Hepburn's character's name, and she feels stuck. Whereas Julia who Grant's character Johnny is engaged to, is very much constantly listens to her father. We don't even really know if she agrees, disagrees. I don't think she knows. And she's just always looking for approval of her father. And of course, you know, they expect him to join the business and to do what the father wants them to do. And so what do, right? And of course, this is where it gets complicated, because Katherine Hepburn's character becomes interested in Johnny because she likes the way he thinks, and she likes that he's an individual, and he's curious about life, and he's enthusiastic, and she is too. And they both have this search. They want to search the world and the meaning of life and see who they really are. But now, you know, he's engaged to her sister. She loves her sister, and she's falling for Johnny Case, so I just think it's really wonderful to have this happen at New Year's, and this New Year's party in the film, because again, New Year's is when we look at the future and we think, you know what, I'm going to make these resolutions, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's very much where these characters at. It's a new year, and we're looking ahead, and so everyone in it is really, really good, particularly Hepburn and Grant, who give wonderful performances. They had wonderful chemistry. Lou Ayres, who or is it Iris? Ayres, who I've just recently heard of. I'm sure I've seen him in things, but he plays Ned Seaton, the brother of Julia and Linda, and he becomes an alcoholic, and he's great in it. I mean, he's really, really wonderful, and he worked with Cukor in the past on All Quiet on the Western Front, which Cukor was the dialogue director for back in when they just started making talkies. They had co-directors because they weren't sure if directors who only had worked in the silent medium could work with actors very well. So they got people from the theater, work with actors with dialogue, that is. So they got people from the theater to work with actors on dialogue, and that's what Cukor did. And so he had worked with them before. They didn't get along. They didn't quite click. Lou wasn't a big fan of Cukor, but on Holiday, Cukor's approach to directing evolved and got better, and actually Lou liked him a lot. So this is a great, great film. Highly recommend it. After that, this is, earlier when I was talking about an iconic scene, I mean, The Godfather Part II is a masterpiece. It's a perfect film. Those of you who follow the channel, you may remember that 4 years ago, in the early days of my YouTube channel, we did a live video. Back when Steve Chambers was my co-host, we did a live video where we all talked about New Year's movies on New Year's Eve, and this was one of my picks, and I'm certainly going to pick it again. I'll read a brief synopsis. The early life and career of Vito Corleone in 1920s New York City is portrayed while his son Michael expands and tightens his grip on the family crime syndicate. This, of course, was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was written by Coppola and Mario Puzo. Some of what's in the novel, which Part 1 is based on, is also adapted into Part 2. The young Vito story, that's in the novel as well. This starred Al Pacino, Robert Duvall, Robert De Niro, John Cazale, and Diane Keaton. And of course, for anyone who's seen it, we have that iconic New Year's scene, and this is when Michael realizes that his brother Fredo was involved in the assassination attempt on his life. And as soon as when midnight strikes, it's with a kiss of death. When Al Pacino as Michael Corleone embraces his brother and then grabs his face and kisses him on the mouth, the kiss of death, and says, "I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart." And Pacino's performance is so great. I mean, you feel like he wants to kill him right then and there. The anger coming out of him that he's trying to contain. And then Cazale, they were so beautiful together. Cazale, the way in which he reacts with such guilt and fear as he runs off. It's perhaps not a New Year's film. I know a lot of people watch the Godfather films during the holidays because, Part 1 has Christmas scenes, and this one does as well. And so, but, it does resonate with New Year's because, like I said, sometimes things end and the year ends badly, and all we want to do is get the hell out of this year. And how many times have we heard that? When is this year going to be over? We want to move on and start fresh. And this, obviously ends very badly for both Fredo and Michael. But it's iconic. It's a masterpiece. So if you haven't seen it, highly recommend it, or go see it again. And this film, Sean Baker is probably one of my favorite filmmakers working today that's, been working in the 21st century. I think he's one of the most exciting directors. I'd love to meet him one day or work with him or interview him. But every film he's made has floored me, and this is no exception. But this is Anora. Anora, I'll read a synopsis. Anora, a young sex worker from Brooklyn, meets and impulsively marries the son of an oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as his parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. This, of course, like I said, was written and directed by Sean Baker. It starred Mikey Madison, Paul Weissman, and Lindsey Normington. Mikey Madison gives a fantastic performance. I know she was in one of the recent Scream films, and she was in Once Upon a Time in America, and I've seen those two films, and she's great at playing someone insane and crazy. And she's not insane and crazy in this, but she's got a real depth and intensity, and also can be quite funny. And the thing that I love so much about Baker's films is that they have this seamless blend of humor and drama, even in the craziest or life and death situations that you can think of. And it's done totally organically, and he's interested in the marginalized, whether it's a sex worker, people in the transgender community, immigrants, and Sean shows us that we can relate to every single one of these people in one way, shape, or form, that we're all human, and that we all share and have a shared humanity, and that we all have so much alike. Just that maybe this person happens to be transgender, or this person happens to be a porn star or a sex worker, or what have you. And maybe you can't identify with everything about someone, but there's a lot that we can identify with. And his films are never like, what is it like to be a sex worker, or what is it like to be a porn star? It's just that these are what these people do, and then the story goes into some other kind of relationship driven, often narrative. And what I like so much about his films is that not all of them, but the characters are often, they're almost like road films, only within the city, but they're always on a search for something. They're always looking for something, whether they have to go around the city looking for someone or looking for money or what have you. And that happens a lot in his films. And he just has these really kind of outrageous characters who are so fun to watch. But this I only mention it because I love Baker's movies so much, and it has a New Year's scene. I wouldn't consider it a New Year's film, let's say, but it has a New Year's scene, and not long after that, that's when the young couple in the film decide to get married. And, hey, does that have something to do with it? It's the new year. Hey, we're falling in love. We're having a great time during the holidays. Let's get married. And, of course, as I said in the synopsis, once this guy's family finds out, because of who she is, they try to destroy the marriage and have it annulled. But it's an incredible, ride of a film to witness. And this poor woman they basically try to destroy her simply because of what she does. The beauty of Baker's films is that there's always someone who eventually sees this person who people are treating as inhuman as human beings, and finds and has compassion for them, and has empathy for them, and sees them. And it's really beautiful, this sense of empathy and connection. And we can have, if we just really look at people, really listen to people, really empathize with people, really have compassion for others and feel for one another's, my God, this would be an amazing world. And there's a lot that is amazing in the world, but there's a hell of a lot that's terrible, as we all know. But I think that's a wonderful thing to take away, not only from this film, but in all of Baker's films. So those are 4 that I'd highly recommend. If you haven't seen any of these, go away, check them out, come back and let me know what you think. Or if you've seen them, or one of them, 2 of them, comment below and let me know what you think of these films. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/RobertBellissimo at the movies for full details. You can also leave a donation, or what I call a tip, by clicking the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on that and you can leave a donation if you choose to. Of course, I would greatly appreciate that. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movie logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that. And then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new videos. I would also really appreciate if you leave a comment, share the video, like the video. All of these things create traction onto my YouTube channel and really help share the video far and wide, and the channel in general. So thank you so much for doing that, and I will see you all in the next one.